Well, greetings YouTube, LMS Tactical here. I hope everybody's doing good. This video is a request from a police officer who asked me to talk about how I handled domestic violence calls back in my time as a cop, back in the 80s and 90s. So, obviously tactics and things may have changed between that era and this era. So I'll give you what I did, and again, I don't have anything planned, so it's probably, as usual, be a little bit of mumbling as I try to get my head into it. I always just turn on the phone and see what comes out, but going off of memory, I can tell you that this is the way that we approached, or at least I approached. Cops had different styles, and I'm sure they still do today. Let's start first of all with a little bit of background for the non-police officers and wannabe cops, like people that are considering it. Typically domestic violence calls, they have the potential to be the most deadly for a lot of reasons. And I'm sure that if you're in the academy or if you're getting ready to go to the academy, they'll cover this stuff. But a domestic violence call is when two people are having issues, whether it's a man and a wife, a father and a mother, father, daughter, boyfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. And they have a tendency to be pretty violent because of a few things that should be pretty obvious. Number one is tempers are obviously at a high, or the police wouldn't have been called. Somebody called the police, whether it was the neighbors who heard the shit going on upstairs, downstairs, or next door, or one of the people felt threatened, or somebody in the house felt threatened. And so you already got tempers already at a peak. And let's face it, man. I mean, a lot of homes in America have weapons in them, and sometimes, in a fit of rage, depending on the person's character, depending on other contributing factors, alcohol, medication, lack of medication, whatever, access to weapons, these things can go volatile super quickly. And because of that, they're not only dangerous for the people in the house or the apartment, they're dangerous for the responding officers. So with that in mind, I made it a rule when I approached calls, not just domestic violence calls, but specifically domestic violence calls. This is super important, in my opinion. So this is all my opinion. That we, never pulled up in front of the location. You shouldn't do that on any kind of call. But what I always did was parked 2 or 3 houses away from the address, on the same side of the street as the house, because you want to be, you don't want, if somebody's laying in wait, you just don't know. There's a million scenarios. Excuse me, I just ate lunch. A husband could have already slaughtered his entire family, and now he's waiting on the police because he saw that the wife called the police, and you're going to get ambushed. You just don't know. So you park on the same side of the street as the location, and you want to be able to get up close without them knowing ahead of time that you're on scene. So, if it's a code 3 call, a lot of times, depending on the call, I would shut my lights and sirens off before I got too close, because sometimes you don't want people to know that you're that close. Remember, time is usually not on your side in terms of catching up to whatever's going on. You got to figure out what's going on, evaluate it, and make a snap second, billionth of a second decision that's going to be analyzed and affect your whole life and your family's life and your income and possibly your freedom. So, or your very life on this planet if you tactically fuck up to the point where you lose your life. So you want to give yourself as much of an edge as you can in terms of catching up. Parking on the same side of the street, you get out of the car, and as you approach, not on the sidewalk, but maybe cutting through people's yards if it's possible, what the idea is that you want to be using all of your senses, Everything is information, and information is knowledge, and knowledge is power. And I could go through a million possibilities, and you'll see them throughout your career. If you smell PCP, or you smell methamphetamine, or you smell whatever, that may be important information to know that you're walking into that kind of environment. More importantly, on a domestic violence call, it's good to hear, sometimes the lack of any sound is very telling. If you got 2 or 3 calls coming in that there's all hell breaking loose, in apartment 105, and as you get closer, you don't hear shit. That's information that you need to evaluate and process. And that should change your level of attention to a degree, in terms of what you're focusing on. You're also using your visual. You're looking around, is there somebody in the car that's out in front of the house? Maybe the guy's already leaving and he's slaughtered somebody. Whatever. So you're watching, you're looking, you're smelling, and you're listening. If you hear the verbal altercation still going on, if it's verbal, that's important. You can hear certain things that are helpful. Bitch, I'll blow your fucking brains out. Now, you might want to pay more attention to the fact that there's probably or possibly a gun involved. Now, you should always be thinking that there's a gun involved anyway, just so that gives, you know what I'm saying? I mean, civilians may think, oh, that's fucked up. But cops know what I'm saying. In other words, you don't want to think that you're going into a Q-tip fight and then get caught off guard because, they're in there with machetes or M60 machine guns. So you want to hear, I'll cut your throat, motherfucker. Now you realize that you might be dealing with a guy with or a girl with a blade. This is all information that you need to have. If, like I said, if you don't hear anything, but you hear furniture crashing around and shit, now you know that you got to step things up. There's somebody's possibly getting hurt. So just use all of your senses, use your tactics on the approach. This is my suggestion. And then once you get in, what I always did, now you got to separate the two combatants. I mean, if they're, basic 9 out of 10 times, and you can't count on this, but 9 out of 10 times, you're going to either the door's open or somebody's going to open the door and he did this and she did that. Yeah, but he's on parole and she's got dope in her purse. And, this is what goes on. The tension is palatable, man. And everybody wants to fucking be the good guy and show you the bad guy. So the first thing you want to do is you want to establish command presence. Now that's a whole nother video because I'm not sure what the rules are in today's, what's the word I'm looking for? Politically correct, super sensitive. I guess you can't even call a guy a he anymore. So I wouldn't know how to deal with that. You're going to have to figure that out. Yeah. But the idea is using whatever socialist, fucking liberal, leftist crap is acceptable nowadays. You want to take charge of the situation and you want to separate the two. Now, when you do that, you're working with a partner. You want to make sure that you're talking to one person whose back is to the next person, the other person, with some distance. Your partner is interviewing that person, but you can see each other. You want to make sure that you can see each other. So if your partner suddenly gets shanked or the person attacks him, you're there watching through, you're not tunnel visioning in on your, on the person that you're taking a statement from. Now, where you do this is super important. You don't want to get out of sight of each other for the reasons I just mentioned. And you don't want to interview people in places like the kitchen. And why would we not want to interview somebody in the kitchen? Because in every kitchen there are knives and other sharp objects and a coffee pot full of hot coffee or spaghetti boiling on the fucking stove. All of that shit can be completely disastrous to you. Everything in that house is a potential weapon. So you don't want to stack the odd. You don't want to stack it in their favor. You need to be very cautious of where you're putting people. If you're going to have them sit down on the couch, make sure that you or your partner searches deep in the cushions, lifts them up if they come off, because it has been known. I've seen this numerous times. I've got some pictures of some evidence I recovered like this, where, you go to search a couch before you sit somebody down and there's a freaking sawed-off shotgun right by the armrest under the cushion. That could have a terrible ending. So make it a rule that before you ever let anybody sit on any couch or bed, you lift out the pillows and the blanket. You make sure that you're in control of the situation and that your people are, the people you're dealing with are not being put into a position of advantage over you. Another thing you have to be aware of is cultural differences. And again, I don't know the politically correct way, but back in the 80s and 90s, I mean, we could tell you to sit down and shut the fuck up. I think that was taught to us in the academy. There might have been a lesson on how to tell people to sit down and shut the fuck up. I'm exaggerating, but back then, total different world. But cultural differences have to be understood, or you could inadvertently make a mistake that could end up costing somebody their life. An example that comes to mind mind is, you know, I was a Los Angeles police officer, so I dealt primarily with African Americans, whites, Armenians, Hispanics. You know, it's a melting pot in Los Angeles. A lot of Hispanics, and that could be any El Salvadorians, Mexicans, whatever, Peruvians, but Colombians, on and on. There is, whether we like it in America or not, there are things in certain cultures that have been around for a long time. One of them is machismo. And in a Hispanic home, for a gringo, a white guy, or anybody, any guy especially, but certainly a person in a position of authority, to tell a husband to sit down and shut the fuck up in front of his wife and, God forbid, his kids, you put that guy in a position where he's going to have to maintain his machismo. He's going to have to maintain his manhood. And you could force a guy that would normally be pretty cooperative, if he's had a few drinks, cervezas, you know, he may take a swing at you or worse, because now you're trying to make him look like a little bitch in front of his wife. You can't do that. That's just, there's some cultures where you just can't do that. We didn't have a lot of experience with the Muslim culture, because we weren't in, you know, the wars in the desert and all that shit weren't happening. So I have to believe, though, that there's a little bit of that there too, you know, that in cultures where women are on a lower echelon in terms of rights and importance, you know, you don't want to be verbally slapping the man of the house around in front of the family, because you're going to put them in a position where they got to maintain their manhood. So that's just something to be aware of. And I'm sure, and I would hope that in whatever academies you guys are in, that they're talking about these subjects, because it's been quite a long time now, and I'm sure there's people with better and more current info on it. But so yeah, you know, at the end of the day, if somebody needs to be knocked on their fucking ass, I would highly suggest you knock them on their ass. I mean, there are times, you know, you're going to get all the cop haters going, oh, it's a guy that was bullied as a kid, he has to have his power now behind the badge. Look, in life, whether you're a cop or a fucking donut maker or a milkman, sometimes you got to knock a motherfucker on his ass. That's just the real world. I'm sorry if they're teaching you young people different, but some people on the planet only understand one thing, and that's force. All right? I'm sorry, but that's just the reality of it. We haven't evolved yet to the point where, as a civilization, you know, we can tickle people into custody. Some people just ain't going without a fight. So you want to have the upper hand. You want to make sure you got your physical strength together. Your tactics are good. You're protecting your weapon. You're watching them. You search them down before you sit them down, you know, that kind of thing. And I think, you know, I'm trying to think if I left anything out, man. I can say that when you enter the dwelling and you ask whoever the person is that runs the place, you know, the man or the woman of the house, you know, hey, who lives here with you? Of course, nowadays they'll probably tell you to fuck off. I don't know how to do police work today. But in my day, you would find out, hey, who's here? Oh, it's my wife and my 3 kids. Who's home? My wife and, you know, 2 kids. My son's somewhere else. Is there anybody else in the house is always a good question, because you don't want to be talking and then get surprised by, you know, Uncle Jim, who walks around the corner holding what looks like a sawed-off shotgun, and he's actually coming out because it just so happened he was going to show his brother a relic that he got at some fucking gun shop. Weird things happen and people die, so you need to make sure you know who's in the house. Hey, do you mind if I take a look around and tactically make sure that there's nobody in the bathroom that's going to pop out? What if, God forbid, you start to take somebody in custody and you didn't know that Uncle Jim was in the house, and now he looks out, hears a commotion, sees you beating up his brother in his mind. Now you're fighting 2 people. Okay? And you're talking about passionate fights. You know, we're talking about people's families here. And these are worst case scenarios. Hopefully you can get through. 99% of the time you won't have to worry about this shit, but these things do happen. Gosh, I just thought of something else. What was it? I was talking about people. God damn it, my brain is getting so fucked up. All right, so people come around. It's age, man. People coming out of the rooms. Let me see if I can remember what I was going to say. I can't remember. I'll remember after I post a video. I'll be like, God damn it. But okay, yeah. So find out who's in the house. I'm trying to stall and see if my brain will kick in a memory Come on, man. Come on. Get a couple of neurons to just bump into each other and fucking make a spark. You want to know who there's in the house. I every time I say it, I think I'll remember. Fuck it. I ain't going to remember. But, yeah, that's basically it. You want to take command of the situation. You also want to be on the lookout for dogs. And, it's good to know if somebody's got a pit bull, that happens to be relaxing out on the veranda and doesn't like cops. And now you're dealing with that. So you have a lot of things to think about. If you do go to take somebody into custody, here's what I was going to say. It just came back. I knew if I stalled long enough. You would be surprised how many times Mrs. Smith calls the police on Mr. Smith, and Mrs. Smith has, been beat up, abused, and hates Mr. Smith until the minute you go to take Mr. Smith into custody. Mrs. Smith becomes his ally, and she will jump on your back, pull your hair out of your head, stick her thumbs in your eyeballs. She'll do everything to stop you from arresting the guy that was just kicking her ass. That's just a phenomenon of police work and couples and the insanity of humanity. That rhymes. So be prepared. Don't always think that because the person called the police, they're on your side. There's a lot of factors and reasons behind that. I'm not a Dr. Phil. Sometimes it's because they're afraid now that they got the husband arrested, and when he gets out, all hell's going to break loose. Sometimes they're just fucking nuts. Sometimes it's alcohol induced and drug induced and all this other shit. But, a lot of people just don't like the police, I didn't want you to arrest him. Well, I don't know what the laws are all around the country, but in California, when I was a cop, basically, if you went to a domestic violence call and you saw visible marks, the arrest was not up to whether or not the person reporting wanted it done. We were now obligated to make an arrest. So, because so many people back in the old days, cops would come and say, all right, you just leave the house and go stay with your sister and you guys just calm down. And so many times people would come back and a wife was killed and cops got sued. And so, they did the right thing by basically taking it out of the people's hands and putting it on the cops. Cops have to arrest. And I don't know if that's nationwide or not, but that's how it was out west. Anyways, I hope that helps somebody. And if I left something out and you're a law enforcement guy or a retired law enforcement girl or whatever, throw in your 2 cents. We're talking about helping not just the cops that ask the questions, but each other and helping society understand sometimes, what they're seeing. Because a lot of times we don't know what we're looking at and we get the wrong idea that it's police abuse. And sometimes it's just the way police work is, it's the way humans are. But I hope that helps. I hope you guys are having a great Sunday. I think it is. In the meantime, stay safe. LMS Tactical.